Okay, hello, Rick Willard from New York. Welcome on this channel.
Thank you, Michel. Nice to see you.
Very nice. We are thrilled to have you with us at this Systemic Economy Summit, and we had some very important questions for you, and we are privileged to have your answers. So maybe in a few sentences, tell me what is your job, what is your expertise?
Right. Agentic Group is an innovation platform that is distributed globally throughout a federated membership of companies. We have 54 companies around the world right now that are focused on the decentralized internet. So we live and practice what we talk about with our clients. So we have rather large clients. We've dealt with the country of Luxembourg, the port of Rotterdam, aerospace company here in America, that are trying to understand how they can benefit from the shift in, not only the shift in technology and the shift in finance that's occurring, but also the shift in thinking and the shift in adopting these sort of technologies that are transformative by nature. So we realize that innovation, as Steve Jobs famously said, innovation happens at the water cooler, meaning a place where people converge from different parts of the company. So if you expand that thought, we are a global water cooler. What we do is we have thinking from all around the world on what it means to be decentralized and how that it's applied in local terms, and then we become a repository of those applications and a cross-pollination of those applications around the world, because no one set of thinking will ever solve one specific problem. So we bring thinking from all around the world to the benefit of our clients.
Very interesting.
And then help them to understand and adapt to the global changes happening around them. So they're not building just locally for their own internal profit, but also building in ways that connect us more and building in ways that create more value over time. So we call this the Internet of Value. And we are the platform, the only platform that I know of anyway in the world that focuses on this specific issue.
Internet of Value, I like it. So Rick, the first question we have and the public has is which are actually those next big technological numerical innovations that will change the face of the world, and without any technical details, but which are they and what is the major impact of those innovations?
Right. So we all have read the newspapers and the blogs and the various accounts of artificial intelligence, of genetics, of algorithms, of big data. You know, all of these are converging, and it's sort of a train wreck if you think about it, because we are expanding and exploring in places that were normally reserved for the title of under God, like God takes care of this, and we're realizing that we are, you know, playing with fire in many ways. So how do you then engender trust? How do people work together? How do people live in the age of robotics when these blue-collar factory jobs no longer exist, which makes up the bulk of, has made up the bulk in the industrial age, the backbone of societies, you know, people manufacturing things, right? So when
you're telling that the backbone of society, which was tangible factories with machinery, is going to shift to another backbone, which will be a flow of information.
That's
which
right.
will be facilitated by new ways of captating and diffusing and updating information.
Absolutely. I mean, and products themselves are at a race to the bottom in terms of pricing, right? So we're at the zero margin level now, where goods and services really cost almost nothing. Energy costs almost nothing in most parts of the world.
That would be part of the solution if we can make resources more accessible in a more efficient way, information, but also tangible goods.
Right. This is exactly what's happening.
Okay.
And it's not just me saying this. You have, you know, various thought leaders. Jeremy Rifkin, his book, most recent book, talks about that exact thing. and we've worked with Jeremy on a couple of projects, and it's fascinating to hear him talk about all of us now being prosumers. You know, we're both producing and consuming simultaneously. So that opens the door. So when you ask, you know, what is the disruptive innovations? You know, the innovations themselves are completely disruptive. We are in an age of disruption, where we're this phase shift.
It's very interesting what you say, because you're telling us that goods, our lifestyle will cost less.
Absolutely.
This is a very important information.
It will cost less, and it will include more people.
Okay.
So,
yes. Okay.
One of the most disruptive technologies, just to finish up that question, is the mobile phone. The idea of the mobile phone and ubiquitous connectivity. Because when the mobile phone itself, forget the fact that that technology will evolve over time, it will become smaller and more ingrained and more part of the things that we use and connected to the things that we use. But when almost 3 billion people get access to that technology, once a smartphone is under $5 to produce and get into the hands of a consumer, you know, the majority of people living in poverty will have access to that, and access to digital wallets, and access to apps, and ubiquitous connectivity. So that
do they pick up? Do people, you know, when you take them out of the desert, you know, poor people, do they pick up this technology quickly and fast?
Not only do they pick up and adopt it quickly, they actually change the face of it. If you look at M-Pesa in Kenya, for instance,
yes,
you know, it became an alternative. What was set up to be a way to top up your phone minutes turned into its own currency. People buy, sell, and trade phone minutes as a currency. So people are ingenious. Not only do they adopt things quickly, but they use them in unintended ways that create new forms of value. And that's happening all over the world. I use the analogy when in the height of Wall Street, in the 1960s in America, 50s, 60s, 70s, most of the traders on the floor never had college educations. They weren't the most educated people in America. They were people with high school educations, mostly men, of course, and at that time, because of where we were in society. But these are people who, in some cases, had maybe an 8th grade education, maybe just junior high school. But they were smart. Your education does not define your intelligence. They knew how to trade. They knew a good deal when they saw one. They made millions of dollars a year with hardly any education that we would consider an education right now. So all they had to do was be a good horse trader, basically, right? And you could do very well for yourself. So we're going to find that there are a lot of smart people in the world, a lot of intelligent people in the world who simply have not had access to the level of education that we in the West are used to. It does not mean they're not intelligent, and they will find new ways of creating value within this network that we have never even heard of before. And a certain level of genius will make itself known pretty quickly.
Very good. But smartphone, artificial intelligence, blockchain, these innovations are only in the beginning of a societal transformation. That's what they tell us.
Of course, well, the blockchain actually is essential in all of this. It's part of the movement, but it is the underpinning of all that movement because it allows the immutability factor, it allows the scalability, it allows for permissioned environments, which means that it actually, from permissioned environments, it creates a trust environment. And
trust, scalability, I pick up your words. Trust,
and identity.
Security, scalability. These are paradigms that's
right.
that are essential. Huh?
And identity. And identity is actually core to the trust. Because once you can qualify a person's identity and your access to that part of their identity that shows that they're trustworthy in what you're doing, then I don't have to know Michel de Kemmeter to be able to do business with you. I don't need to even know your firm. What I need to know is certain salient points. You know, has he done this and that? And has he been a good player in society? And if that's the case, we can do business and I'll never have to see you and it becomes a completely algorithmic transaction.
So give us a few concrete examples that you see emerge at the moment of things that will change actually our daily life with these applications of, for example, blockchain?
So I can tell you one example here. The company called Monograph in New York City. They have taken the idea of controlling one's content. So if you look at the hegemony that was had by, say, record companies and content producers like Viacom and these big, these monolithic organizations. What they've done with the Bitcoin blockchain is they've allowed anyone to create their own content, be it digital, be it music rather, be it video, as long as it's digital. And they use the blockchain to do three things simultaneously. One is to distribute that content to any given place, like a website. Famously, their one example was the United States Surfing Association, or something like that, some kind of acronym that was all about surfers, and it's a very closed, portion, a segment of humanity. But they have this organization, and so it's a very tight organization around the world. They have a lot of video, so they would disseminate this video through Monograph to publicize and promote surfing around the world to various sites. So the content, the video, goes into the blockchain pipeline, is disseminated at strategic sites, and to be able to click on it and create then a transaction to view it, you pay a certain amount of money, which is then transferred into Bitcoin and then pushed along the rails, the Bitcoin rails, as Bitcoin payment. And then the third thing is distributed out to the various stakeholders through the Bitcoin blockchain, coming out as Bitcoin, which is then traded for cash. So you have this automatic mechanism where, one, you're disseminating it, the content, which by definition, because of the immutability of the blockchain ledger and the anti-double spend nature of the technology, is in fact digital rights management at large. So it protects the content.
Protects content. Yeah. That's one of the challenges. Is about knowledge. When you float it on the web, you lose it.
Right.
In a way, you offer it, but you lose it, but you don't monetize it. Here, it's a way to monetize.
That's right. And so you can't simply steal it. It's cryptographic technology.
That's interesting.
You can't copy it. That's the first thing. So it's the distribution and digital rights management. It's the payment rail simultaneously built within the same channel. Right? And then it's the distribution rail of, so what you've done is you've disrupted three things. You've disrupted the hegemony of large firms controlling content and being gatekeepers. You've disrupted the bank's role in the payment process.
Yes.
And then you've disrupted at the end that final toll that one pays. Again, really, it's more bank related, to receive your money in a timely fashion, without going through ACH, without going through SWIFT or anything like that.
And would that also give an answer to the problem of the unreliability of content and information, which is a big problem today? The fake news and all?
I'm not sure that it does that, because if people gravitate towards fake news and make it important, they will. I think that you've actually answered a pretty interesting issue, or you've asked a pretty interesting question that deserves an issue-based answer, which is the blockchain is only as good as the content or the material that you put into it. If you put a fake identity or a piece of fake news into a blockchain, that fake will live forever. That lie will live forever. And so you have some organizations like Accenture trying to make editable blockchains. And so then you're forced with an actual quandary. If a blockchain is editable, is it now trustable if it can be edited? So even if the information is not false, then if it's on an edited blockchain, then it might be false. It might be changed over time in some sort of Orwellian, sort of a change up in reality, right? So that's a really good question, to bring up. I'm not a big fan of editable blockchains, but then you've got to be very, very careful that the content that you're pushing through a blockchain, whether it be news or surfer videos or music, well, music is not necessarily fake, but it must be, in fact, a real source, you know. Or else it's garbage in, garbage out, the same sort of digital.
It can destroy a whole system if a little bit too often garbage is put in.
Right.
And I think that the last question, essential, I think, because
okay, so what's important in that also is, you know, how we attack that is by reputation systems. And that is, and that's the social media aspect of all of this. Who are you online? And you see people getting offline a lot because they don't trust technology as much. They know that Zuckerberg is selling your data and making billions of dollars off of it, and you're not seeing anything, right? So we can go into what that means for payments, for participants in social media, and reputation systems. So I've been saying this for literally over 15 years, that we're not far now from the time when content providers will have to pay people to look at what they have, because there's a multiplicity of content factions out there, right? There's lots of ways to get your information. Facebook will not much longer be able to give you free access to Facebook and not pay you to actually engage. Whoa. And there, you know, Monograph is the precursor to this. It's still using a 20th century model in paying the content providers, but that's going to be reversed within the next, you know, those tests are happening now, but within the next 5 years, I can see that being reversed pretty easily in some models that actually work, because then you have a more engaged viewership or a more engaged constituency, even if you talk about governments, who find it in their best interests to participate in a way that promotes veracity and truth, so that they can keep participating. Right? If they are, through reputation systems, found to be liars or otherwise untruthful or bad players, bad actors, then they get kicked off the system. And that's going to be important, because as robots and algorithms take more and more jobs away, one's livelihood will be directly connected to either production of local goods and services at an artisanal level, like cottage industry from centuries ago, or making your life completely on the internet. And most people are not pig farmers. Most people don't make leather bags. Yeah. So one will be forced from a completely organic way to make their living on the internet. So your reputation will be essential to this. So all of these dynamics are happening at the same time, and trying to make sense of them is actually what we do on a daily basis. You know, are changing.
Okay, so to conclude, you said Internet of Value. We are thrilled to see that's what's going to happen in the few next years, and we can be part of it, when we are part of it, to change this Internet of manipulation into an Internet of value, of value for people. So that's, I think, if I understand well, the major challenge of dealing with new technologies.
But essentially, the shift in value is the shift in our realization of ourselves. And when we first started as a think tank in 2013 called Mint Combine, that's what brought on Agentic Group. We spoke with CEOs around the world, CTOs, CFOs, and told them that what's happening here in this phase shift is that how your company is valued, the value of your employees, how you see value constructed all over the world is going to go through a definitive shift. And so Nike Corporation might one day, in fact, be a bank if it were to create tokens that started off as loyalty points that are tradable assets with other companies' loyalty points to create a sub-economy. It will change the value of that company and how people perceive value all around the world. And that's just one small example. But we got kicked out of a lot of boardrooms. In 2014, you might well imagine that people weren't ready to hear that. That's only 3 years ago. And look how far consciousness has actually come since then. Banks, you know, will have to rethink what it means to be the gatekeepers of finance for community. Um, I am convinced that there'll be a multiplicity of currencies in the world that represent different forms of value, from basket makers, sort of collective, to the clothes makers, artisanal clothes makers collective. All of these will be tokenized. There will be exchanges where you can trade value for value, which again is going backwards in time.
Yeah.
To not really forward, but it's essentially amplifying those things that are human in us and breaking down the artificial barriers that we built up in the Industrial Revolution for the sake of money.
That's the essence. There we touched, I think, the bottom line, and I'm very, very happy that we got to this point. So to conclude, thank you very, very much, Rick, for this extremely interesting dive inside this knowledge and consciousness of what's going on now with technology. And well, let's meet very soon and get to the field and do things together.
It's always a pleasure talking with you, Michel. Thank you very much, and I hope everyone has a great time at the event and learns a lot along the way.
They will, and you will be fed back with all the content that we are now going to create together.
Fantastic. Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.